Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. A few days ago, I did a showcasing of the personal Modrone by Benedetti. It's an outstanding deck, even if you can't buy it at this time, and even if it's not on your radar to purchase it, you owe it to yourself to look at this deck, just to see it, just to be aware of it. Okay, and I'll link that video below so you have an opportunity to watch it if you haven't already. Now, whenever I showcase a deck for the first time, I also like to do a reading using it to show how a deck presents in a spread, how it looks, how it reads, how it flows. And so today I thought I would do a reading with the Personal Modrone by Benedetti. Now remember, for those of you who may not be familiar with this deck, it is a 90 card deck. So there are 8 additional court cards because each court suit has an additional 2 cards for a total of 8 additional cards. Each one has a male and female knight. Each suit has a male and female page in addition to the king and queen. So it's more humanistic, isn't it? Because there's more representation of gender. And in addition to those 86 cards, are 4 additional virtues. Now, the tarot deck already has virtues. It already has, justice. It already has fortitude. There's probably another one in there. Age, or the hermit could be considered a virtue in age and wisdom. It might have been considered wisdom at one point. But in addition to those, this deck has 4 more. It has the prudence, it has chastity, faith, and hope. And in yesterday's video, I gave tips for being able to identify those additional 4 cards. And the reason I thought it might be helpful to show or to give tips on how to remember those 4 cards is because in the course of time, many of these cards from the Visconti Sforza decks, many of them have been lost, right? And so modern day deck creators have taken some of the virtue cards and maybe replaced the missing card with it. Maybe they altered it in some way to make it more representative of that card that was missing, but they might have used one of the additional virtue cards. For example, the chastity card, I think, has been used in place of the Queen of Cups in some decks. So I thought it was important to give tips for how to identify and remember what the additional cards are. Okay, now because this is a humanistic deck, as I mentioned, it's got not only does it have additional people cards, but it has additional cards of reminding us to live better lives, right? Reminding us of the virtues of a life well lived. And so for that reason, I think it would be timely to do a reading on a very humanistic topic. So let me try to come up with one. And we'll do a few readings with this deck to see what the cards will yield for us. Now, in the past, I may have mentioned that I have an atypical brother. He's an adult brother. I've inherited his care once my mother died in 2016. And that's a long story. We tried to get my mother to understand, or both of my parents, but my father died first. And then when he died, the siblings, there's 4 of us, the other 2, including, and then me as well, tried to express to my mother that she really owed it to herself and to our brother to set him up in some type of lifestyle. And even if he was, in some services that would allow him to have his own life and to function without her when the time came that she died. And she didn't want to hear of it. My father didn't want to hear of it either. So, of course, when my mother died in 2016, here we had this adult male who could not take care of himself. However, the two siblings and I, discussed at length that what we were going to give him an opportunity, and we wanted to see how well he could take care of himself. Now, I lived in New Jersey at the time. I still do. And he lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And the distance between our houses was 56 miles one way. And so it was a long drive. And every week, usually once, but on many occasions, I went twice a week, and sometimes even more than that, to check on him. And I drove 56 miles to and 56 miles from to make sure we did his grocery shopping, and I helped him with his laundry, and kept him company and hung out with him, and, just touched base with him and made sure he had enough money for the week, because he liked to run up to the local Wawa and, buy his treats and goodies and stuff like that. So I did that for 18 months until it became apparent to me that my own health was really, it was taking a toll on me. It's probably the primary reason I walk with a cane at this stage. And so I just couldn't continue. It was just too much. And then we all agreed that the best situation for my brother would be in a long-term care facility. At first, we put him in a assisted living home. Beautiful, very nice. But I'll put it out there. At the very least, there was neglect, and at the worst, it was abuse. We can't necessarily prove it, but I'll go to my grave believing that that's exactly what it was. So we took him out of there once we understood or began to really suspect that, and we put him in and because part of the neglect was that he fell and broke his hip. And once somebody breaks their hip when they're elderly, sometimes it's the end. They don't have a lot of time after that. So then we put him in a long-term care facility. I'm sorry, I'm giving you my life story here. In order to have 24/7 care, because I just I couldn't do it, But he's only 3 miles from me or 5 miles from me. So I see him regularly. On my days off, I go and I see my brother, spend time with him. And he's very happy there. And I know that he's not being mistreated. And he's very happy. He's just very content, and he's got a social life there. And now that he hasn't been well, everybody comes to his room and say, "Man, you got to get better. We miss you," and that kind of thing. So I know he's really happy. But at any rate, one of the things about my brother, getting back onto the question, and I'm so sorry about this. I guess it's too long-winded. But one of the things about my brother is that he's autistic and he's atypical, and his behavior and his responses to things can drive you out of your mind. And everything I do for this guy, he just he can't be, I would say, verbally abusive towards me. I don't think he sees it. He definitely understands it. When I call him out on it and I say, "That is disrespectful. I deserve respect, I think you need to rethink about that, And he'll say, "I'm very respectful. You just don't get it. You're just stupid," that kind of thing. So it's like banging my head against the wall. So I think for my own sake, being kind to him, and not losing sight of being kind, is there any approach I can make with my brother, to get better behavior from him? I don't think the autism is an excuse for bad behavior. He gets a big leeway for not having a filter and not having bad. We get all that, but I don't think it's asking too much to expect better behavior. So, is there anything I can do, to get it across to him? So this is him, the Knight of Swords. Oh, and he's like a child. And I'm looking to see if there's a hilt on that. I think that's also, so yeah, he's in armor, so it's well, all knights, well, he's a page. So these are kind of hard to tell what they are. My impression, because I'm ambiguous on that, I'm going to say these are both swords. I'm sure that's a sword. I'm reasonably sure this is a sword, but I think I'll check. I'll look for the other cards. I'll look for the other page of batons as to see if it's clearly a baton. So hold on. Alrighty, so I am reasonably positive that that is the page of swords because it looks like it. But then when I also pulled the 2 pages of batons, they're clearly different. The baton head is what hits the ground in these cases, right? And they're holding it by the shaft or whatever it's called. With the swords, it's usually the point down on the other court card. So, you know, plus he is in armor, which would be more suggestive, I think, of swords. But at any rate, it's no disgrace to, you know, to check and verify. Now, okay, this is a good point. Had the impression to me been that it was, for example, if I said this is the suit of swords, and had it really been the suit of batons, if I perceived it as the suit of swords, the message would have come through that way. That's the message that was perceived. So it would have been okay. However, when the message received is, I'm not sure, you better check, then you need to check, because the perceived thing is to check, you know, dot your I's and cross your T's. And that could be part of the reading, as a matter of fact. Okay, so he's like a child, but he's an adult. Sharp tongue. And it does seem to be that I tend to get the brunt of it. But, you know, this woman, you know, also reminds me of the nursing staff too, who take care of him. And I think he's probably inappropriate with them, although I've asked them and I've told them to please let me know. And they're just too gracious to say anything to me. Every now and then somebody will roll their eyes and say, oh yeah, Manny, you know, we know about him, don't worry about it, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't see a solution in these cards. I see him. Maybe it's more a matter of accepting him for who he is rather than hoping that he would change. The female pope would also be the quintessential card, since this is the only numeric value card here. I'm not going to pull another deck for it, but to suffice it to say that this spread would be bookend by 2 female popes, requiring the understanding, the love, the wisdom of the message of the female pope, which is to a certain degree acceptance. Okay, there's that. I want to go off camera, come up with another couple of questions. It's not easy coming up with humanistic questions, you know, questions regarding humanity or emotions, or questions regarding right from wrong, you know. It's so easy to come up with questions like, will I get the job? Or what do I need to do to enhance my job, you know, potential? Or, you know, it's easy to come up with those questions, but to come up with meaningful questions about humanity and social interaction, it's not always so easy to come up with questions for the purpose of a reading or demonstration reading. But also, that's not the nature of many questions that people have. Most people want to know how to do something or accomplish something or even avoid something, right? But very few people, including myself, go to the cards with, how can I be a better human being? Or how can I, right there, 2 strikes. How can I be a better human being? Well, I'm going to take it from the cuckoo clock that's the question to ask. So let me go into my meditative place and I'll be back. Okie doke. So how can I be a better human being? Boy, I'm really putting it out there, huh? Prudence. Oh, okay. Dear Prudence. Okay, so how can I be a better human being? The Emperor. For the record, this Emperor, I know, comes from the Brambilla. This is one of the cards borrowed from the Brambilla to supplement the personal Modrone. Oh, wow. The King of Swords. And the Magician. Wow, isn't that interesting? Okay, so here we have 2 gentlemen of authority and power. It's not like the deck doesn't have queens. It does. And it's not like the deck doesn't have empresses, an empress, because it does. But the question was, how can I be a better person? And so male cards have decidedly popped up. And not only just any male cards, but male cards in positions of a lot of power. So maybe I have to have a little bit more, what's the word? Testosterone. Maybe I have to borrow a page from some of the men in my life that I know, or, maybe I have to be more forceful. Maybe that would make me a better person. Okay, let's take a look at 1 and 4, which gives us another male character, the Pope. Okay, now hopefully the Pope is not too far buried. If it is past a dozen cards or so, I will just pause and there's the other Brambilla Triumph card. There's only 2. Okay, so it's not here. So let me pause and find the Pope. Okay, well, here is a good example of being a goofball. This is the Pope. This is not the Emperor. And I'm going through the deck like 4 times looking for the Emperor, and I can't find going through the deck like 4 times looking for the Pope, and I can't find the Pope, right? But I find the Emperor, and I'm like, wait a second. How is the Emperor in the deck if I just pulled the Emperor? So then I realized, come on now. So it was the Pope, not the Emperor, which would then change the Quint card to the Lover card. So we would have the Pope, 5 plus 1 for the Magician would be 6, and it would be the Lover card. Now, this whole little thing can demonstrate a need for humility, because you have to swallow your pride a little bit when you make mistakes in a public way. It just, you have to be able to say I screwed up. So I think I'm able to do that. I do it on the regular. I do it with frequency since I'm frequently making mistakes. But it's not a tough lesson to learn, right? To be humble, These are people in positions of power, right? And to have a mistake made, when these gentlemen make a mistake, it's usually in a public way, like doing a video and making a mistake, right? I mean, I could forfeit the video and just start over. I guess I could do that. But there's a lesson that I wanted to know how I could be a better person. And so I think example would be an example of humility, Okay, but it probably still means that I could be a little more assertive with myself, because it's not just that I'm a pushover, but sometimes when you see something that's not right, you need to speak up about it, and you just can't stay silent because, a good man being silent is what makes the bad people do what they do. And I've tried to live my life that way, and I've spoken up many times when I see something not being good, in public places. And so I have done it, and it's in me to do. But I might be called upon to do it with greater frequency. The Magician card suggests being delft, or clever or sneaky, or to sneak it in when I can. Interesting. And the quintessential card is the Lover card. Do everything with love and grace. Do it from love, not from a place of hatred. Well, love, if it's not coming from love, then don't do it. And I guess, that's the message for me. If it's not coming from a place of love, don't do it. Or if you see the need to speak up on something, speak up, but do it from a place of love and not from a place of hatred. Okay, and let's try one more reading. It just occurred to me that one of the aspects of that reading could have been not to be subservient to men and not to allow men to make decisions and dictate and just accept things. Perhaps as women, I'll ask, what can women do? What can we do collectively, girls, to ensure that we don't surrender our rights, and we don't surrender kindly to other people losing their rights, whether it affects us personally or not. If human rights are affected, it's a bad thing. If human rights are denied, it's a bad thing. And it's a bad thing for not just the person who's losing their rights, but it's a bad thing for society. So I'm going to use my force with this reading, and I mean it. What can we collectively do? Just one thing, today, or tomorrow, or for the next week. What is the one thing we can collectively do to stand up to people's rights being threatened or denied? Queen of Cups. Is that a queen or is that a page? Page of Cups. Ten of Cups. 3, that would be batons. It's arrows, and I know it's tempting to think of them as swords, but they are staffs. They're representing the batons, because the swords are different. So we have 3, and we have 10, and that gives us 13, which is the Death card. If it's on top, I'll go through a few. And if it's not on top, then I'll pause and pull. So I believe that the Death card, along with a few other cards, perhaps the Death card in this deck is a self-loan created from other features from another deck. I'm not sure if any of the, well, no, they had death. I think they were missing the devil and the tower card. I think they did have death, so I stand corrected. I apologize for that. Come on, death. No, well, not really come on, death. Card. I'm talking about the card. Oh, my goodness. Words have power. Take it back. Take it back. I take it back. Where is it, though? I was supposed to pause. So wherever or however Marco came to this card, it's a really cool death card. Okay. You know, well, it seems that, you know, since this is a low-ranking female, right? She's only a page of the Suit of Cups. So it's like we become subservient. We've kind of just go with the flow a little bit too much. And here we have a card of going with the flow, the Suit of Cups. But it reaches its saturation point, right? I mean, at some point, you can't just go with the flow anymore. You just can't. And that's when it's time to speak up or to vote. Vote, you know. Sometimes it seems futile, right? Sometimes it just seems futile. Like there's no point. There's just no point because the people in charge are the people in charge. But you're giving up, you know, if we have that feeling, then we give up, then we're giving up our voice. You know? We're giving up our voice. So we just can no longer go with the flow. We can no longer be subservient. We have to unite, you know? We have to go out there and vote. You know, I think the words here are, and I don't know if it is this or not. I can't read it. I can't see it. But one of the things that the Visconti Sforza decks had is in Bendrate, right? And I don't know if it pertains to this deck or not, but it makes me think of that in that, you know, it's our right, the right to the divine, you know, ruling by divine right, you know, and we have divine right to rule our lives, and we have a right to speak up, and we have a right to be heard, and we have a right to insist and not go with the flow and not be subservient. And it's time to put an end to that BS and to be to be women. And speak up and be powerful and be more like the men, just like my other reading was like, be more like the men. Take a page from their book. Dang, you know, I wish there was a female running, or, you know, I wish there was a woman. Well, it depends on the woman too. I mean, I'm not saying any female, but if the right party put a female in front of us, I would go with her for sure. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, do no harm, and consider other human beings as well as yourself.